Hey friends, welcome back to Robot Unicorn. I have Scott here staring at me. We recorded a 2-part series on allowances. And if you haven't already listened to last week's episode, make sure to check that out before listening to this episode because they kind of go together. In this episode, we're going to talk about a little more practical ways that you could potentially use allowances in your home if you wanted to. And we're also going to talk about why you might not need to use an allowance or might not have an allowance for your children. So it was a really fun conversation, which is why it ended up being 2 episodes long, and we hope you enjoy it.
Welcome to Robot Unicorn, hosted by my parents, Jess and Scott. I hope you enjoyed the episode.
So one of our main questions for this was, should kids get an allowance at all?
Mm-hmm.
And I personally believe, again, because there's not great research out there, but I personally believe that it would be better to give your child nothing, so no allowance, than to give them money without some form of teaching to go along with it. If you're not going to explain how to use the money wisely, then you shouldn't be giving them anything because it is not going to set them up for success by just giving them money.
Yeah.
I just think that can't work. But if you do, let's say, I actually feel like I've been convinced that we should be giving our kids something every week.
Or month.
Well, so there is other research about like keeping things in memory for kids that are younger. And if you do it more regularly, so even if it's, you say, okay, this is how much we want to give per month, but we're going to give it every single week instead, but divided by 4.3 or whatever it is in a month.
Yeah.
That will keep it in their memory and they'll think about it a little bit more and it'll constantly kind of be in their mind if every Saturday morning they're getting a small amount of money and okay, let's bring it to your piggy bank. Or if we decide to do the 3-jar system, which is the spend, save, give system, we kind of divide it up and figure out how we're going to do that. But it allows us to kind of teach them more regularly too. And if we do it for all of them, then we can kind of be like, okay, let's sit down all together. Okay, we're giving you your weekly allowance. Here's your weekly lesson. Not that we're going to do that, but it's kind of like we can have that conversation as we're putting it in their piggy bank or their wallet. And then eventually, as our kids get older, we can add a bank account where they start putting money into a bank account. Maybe it's just once a month at that point then.
Yeah. So what would you do? Let's just say I would know this situation would be tricky for me. So I'm just curious how you would handle this. So let's say we do that. We give them a toonie, every week.
Do Americans know or anyone else know what toonies are?
A toonie is our Canadian $2 coin.
Yeah.
So let's say we give them a toonie every week. They save it up. I can just see this for our oldest. Okay, she's saved it up. Now she has $12. As soon as she has $12, I know that's enough for her to go to the store and buy one of those little stuffies. That's the first thing she's going to want to do. She knows how much they are. What do you say when she wants to go do that with her $12 every time she saves up for $12?
Yeah, I mean, you're kind of skipping over, I think, the middle part where we're kind of explaining the values, right? Mm-hmm. Where we explain, as you get older, we work, we make money. It goes into a bank account and then it has to get divided up amongst, say, cell phone bills and our internet and our electricity and gas and mortgage. And it gets divided up into all these things. So you can't just spend all of that every single time you bring it in. You can't just divide it up and say, okay, I want this thing that I really love, because that's just not realistic. And I mean, that's a very shortened version of it. But then there's also, we have the value of giving away a certain portion of the money that because we feel that we, let's say, don't necessarily deserve all of the money that we receive, and we're very lucky to have the resources that we have, then we also want to make sure that we are giving away some of it. So you have to kind of explain all these different things, our value system that we have with our money and resources. I feel like, and try and instill it in them. And again, you're not giving them $2 or $5 every week and saying, you can spend it on whatever you want. We can't micromanage to the point of, you can only buy the things that I say.
Yeah.
But I do feel like it's kind of, you have to guide them along the path. You're hand-holding them a little bit. And as they get older, they'll be able to make more decisions on their own.
So would you say then that you would try and teach them to, some's for spending, some's for saving, some is for giving of the money that we give them through the allowance?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the, I wouldn't say the experts, but or not the scientific way, but that's what a lot of financial advisors and people would recommend is split it up into 3 jars, the spend, save, give jars, and then teach them the value of all of them. And then, especially for spending and giving, I feel like because we're hand-holding them a little bit, we can say, okay, this week, you know what, we're going to go out, and if you want to buy something, maybe one of those things, and I'll go half on it with you, is we're going to go buy some donuts and bring it to our neighbor's house. And we're going to give away some of the money that you've made. And I just want you to notice how it feels when you do that.
Yeah, and there was research that I was reading too about toddlers under 2 showing, like our littlest kids showing greater happiness actually when they gave than when they received or when they got something for themselves. And I actually included in my book, there is a bunch of actually about how giving is very fulfilling and helps us actually feel a lot better than actually just doing things only for ourselves. And so I do think that that's an important part of the discussion for our children as well. And just helping them see that they can use their money for good and for positive things for other people as well. But to bring it back to my question about, because I can just picture a lot of the clients that I work with, a lot of the kids that I know, you could have these discussions with them, but then they see that stuffy and they know at home they have $11 or whatever it is. And I could just see their brain getting stuck in that moment and then being like, you gave me that money. You said it was mine. I'm spending it on this. How do you, and I can share how I would, but how would you handle that type of situation that probably comes up for parents who give their kids money?
I would probably set in place, one of our values is a 24-hour rule or something like that, where if there's something that you were not already considering buying and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm going to get this, a spontaneous purchase of some kind, I would probably just say our rule as a family is it's okay if you want to buy that, but you have to wait a full 24 hours. And you have to think on it and kind of, again, because they're little, their brain can get stuck on things. It's our next episode.
Foreshadowing.
But their brain can get stuck on things and then it takes them a while to get out of that. Right. So I would set in place, again, we're not giving it to them saying, this is all yours and you get to do whatever you want with it. We're trying to teach them a few skills. And then as they get older, you let them make bigger and bigger decisions. And again, you can let them make that mistake. If I know our oldest daughter wants these 2 things and she spontaneously purchases this one thing she sees at the store, and that means that she can't buy this other thing then for 2 months.
And now she's sad about that.
I actually think that's a good thing to teach her. And I wouldn't bail her out in that either. I wouldn't then all of a sudden buy her that because I think that's kind of a good teaching method, is to let them deal with the natural consequences of their decisions sometimes too.
Yeah, so those were the 2 things I was going to say as well. Like, one, I already make the kids do this whenever I'm shopping with them and they want something, which is every single time I go shopping with them. But okay, I'll give you an example of this happened. This is the most ridiculous thing. So we went to a bookstore last summer, and that day, I don't know why, it was some sort of special day, and I had said to the kids, you each have a couple dollars and you can spend it. I think we were going to the dollar store after or something like that. Oh, I think it was the first day of summer holidays, something like that. And we were going to get something that they could do, craft or something. Anyway, we go to this bookstore and our middle child sees this pin, and the pin can get pinned to your shirt. And the pin says, I don't even know if I ever told you this, it says romance book lover on it. And it's beautiful. It's this beautiful pin. It has all these hearts all over. It's pink and red and white. And our daughter was just she gets very intense about things. And she was like, I love this. She just thought it was the most beautiful pin she's ever seen. And she was like, I must have it. And
of course.
Yeah, right. And I said to her, hun, there's a lot of things that you really, really love and that you've seen today and that you really, really love. I'm not going to buy this for you right now, but if you still remember it and you still love it in a month, I gave her a whole month because I was pretty sure she was going to forget about it, then we can go back and get it. It wasn't that expensive. I could easily have just bought it in the moment.
Yeah.
But I know she loves so many things, and we had already had the plan to go to the dollar store, right? So she agreed. And for the next month, she talked to me about that pin. She drew pictures of it. She talked to me about it. She reminded me of it. She asked me if it had been a month yet. She dreamed about it. And finally, a month later, she had still been asking me about the pin. I still really want it. I still that's the special thing that I want. So we went back and they actually gave it to her. I didn't realize that it was going to be we came back, they remembered her, and it was like just the local
Really?
bookstore in town. Yeah. And they were like, you know what, just, she can have it. Yeah, I honestly think it was like $1 or $2 or something. But it was more the principle of like, I'm not just going to buy everything that you want. And maybe it was too long of a time, but I honestly thought she was going to forget about it, but she didn't. And now I've seen her wearing that pin a whole bunch of times. She even wore it to school the other day. And I was like, oh my word. Romance book lover, like literally shaking my head. But for her, it's just a beautiful pin, and she loves the hearts, and she can't read it or anything. But anyway, that was an example I thought of. Like, I think it was probably too long. I didn't need to like maybe do a whole month, but where I wanted to show her and her sister to pause, actually think about, is this the one thing that you really, really want? And if you still really want it,
Yeah.
and you've thought about it, okay, we can go back. But it's not just about the second you think you desperately want something, I'm just going to buy it for you.
Yeah, maybe the 24-hour rule is that would be more for maybe an older kid.
Yeah, like I think
Like
our
a teenager
oldest,
or something like that.
even our oldest, it might be too short.
Yeah.
They like stuff. That makes sense. Kids like stuff. But I really like the delayed.
She especially is a little pack rat, though. She
She loves her stuff.
Yeah. Anyone gives her a little trinket or even a special rock, and she will have it squirreled away somewhere in her room. Mm-hmm. Then you ask her, what is all this? And she remembers every single item, who it came from and what it was and why it's special to her. Mm-hmm. So.
But yeah, all that to say, I think the pause, like, you know your kids, I think that could have been a bit too long. But this idea that just because they desperately want it in the moment, and also my other rule for myself is I never buy them something because they're crying about it and they're dysregulated about it. Then it's, nope, we can come back. We can talk about this as a family if that's something we want to buy. But, we don't buy kids things just because they've now got themselves worked up and they really want it.
Well, it seems like, I can't remember which statistic this was from, but it was said a roughly 65% of parents can't let their kids make these money mistakes.
Yes, I saw that.
So they'll bail them out.
Yeah.
If they don't have enough, or they spent it on something else but wanted this other thing and are sad, they'll bail them out. And I feel like that's personally not a great idea, just because, again, you're kind of saying, oh, it doesn't really matter. Like, you'll get what you want kind of regardless of the decisions that you make. Mm-hmm. So it's no longer a helpful tool anymore. Mm-hmm. But I think there's probably a fine line between that and also being like, after you told them, you're going to want this other thing more.
Yeah.
Kind of like an I told you so moment where, hey, I told you you're not going to want this and you're going to be upset. And now you did it. See, look what happened.
Right.
I feel like there's probably a balance between them, or
it's more about I think with everything parenting, it's about accepting the discomfort, right? Helping them sit with that. Like, hey, you made a mistake. In the moment, you really, really thought you wanted that stuffy, so you bought it. And now you're disappointed because your $11, whatever, is gone. That's tough. Right. So then it goes back to, I think, all of the foundational things that we teach. It's like allowing the disappointment, allowing the discomfort, talking them through it, but not jumping in to fix it and save the day and be like, it's okay, though. Here's another $10. You can get the other thing that you wanted. I think those are just important life skills, the disappointment, the frustration tolerance that I want for our children. As we're talking, though, I'm like, oof, definitely going to get some pushback on this one. Oh, anytime I talk about, kind of these strict boundaries like this, and I do receive a fair amount of pushback. I think it's uncomfortable because for a lot of parents, it's hard for them to see how this can be done in a way that's loving and kind, because I think they may have grown up with similar rules, but it wasn't done in a kind way, right? So I think it's important to name, like, you're doing this, but you're doing this all out of that secure relationship that you have built with your child, where they trust what you're saying and they want to listen to you, and always comes back down to the relationship that you have. If you don't have that strong relationship, then these conversations might not go as far.
Yeah.
Hey friends, so at pickup last week, our daughter asked Scott a truly kind of tricky question in front of her younger siblings. Scott was telling me that when he heard a question like this, he used to panic, but this time he had a plan. And he said to our daughter, "Thank you for asking. Let's talk tonight when we've got privacy." And that's a line that he learned straight from our new body safety and consent course at Nurture First. So this new body safety and consent course is taught by me. So Jess, if you listen to this podcast, you know me. I'm a child therapist and a mom of 3, and I have taught taught body safety and consent education for years. This course takes all my years of experience teaching this education and gives you calm, age-appropriate language for body parts, consent, and boundaries. You'll learn how to teach your kids that no means no. You'll learn how to teach them to read facial cues. You'll talk about safe and unsafe touch, and you'll even teach them about their uh-oh feeling. There's guidance inside this course for the real life stuff, like tickling that goes too far, and even the difference between a secret and a surprise. We made this course at Nurture First because research shows that body safety education helps kids speak up sooner, and we want that for our family, for Scott and I, but also for you. So check the course out at nurturedfirst.com/bodysafety, and to save 10%, use the code ROBOTUNICORN. And just full disclosure here, we are the creators of this course, and we're so proud of it.
We sort of touched on what can make this hard for real families, right? So if we want to talk about class and culture and all that, if you don't have the funds to do this, it might sound like we're saying allowances, if you use them as a tool, are going to help your kids do better with money in the long run. So we should probably talk about what parents can do if they don't have the means to actually give an allowance to their kids.
Yeah, and I think we've already said too, like allowances aren't the be all end all of financial literacy.
And the reason why I would say the studies were not great is because I think they skewed heavily towards, like the research bias towards affluent individuals, largely affluent white individuals in North America, in the US. That's why I kind of take a bunch of what they say with a grain of salt, because
it's not really
it's
comprehensive research. Yeah,
it's not an accurate representation of the whole world, right? So each culture might do it differently too. Like what I found was apparently in Germany, it's a very common thing to just give children a weekly allowance. It's not tied to necessarily chores or anything. It's just a weekly allowance, and they let kids go off often to buy their own things in the store and everything at a pretty young age, where we might not do that as quickly.
Yeah, I think it's an important part of the conversation. Like the whole allowance discussion is a bit of a privileged discussion, just to even assume that parents have the extra funds to give their child an allowance.
Sure. I mean,
right?
it could be literally 50 cents or $1. Like it doesn't really matter. It's more...
I was going to say that too. It's not necessarily about the amount that you're giving your child. And I also think, let's say allowance aside, like you don't give your child any weekly, monthly amount of money, you can still have these conversations with them. Like still do what I was just talking about, right? Which is like the pause. You're not necessarily buying them the first thing that they want when you're at the store. You're trying to help them understand.
Well, I mean, realistically, if you're not able to afford to give them an allowance, then you're probably also not able to buy them a toy at the store.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
Right. So I think that maybe isn't the best example, and it might be more, it's probably going back to the underlying most beneficial part of this allowance discussion is actually that relationship and having those conversations with your child, practicing with them, maybe including them in some of your financial decision making, not allowing them to make the decisions, obviously, but including them in the decision making that we as a couple make even. And I think our modeling as well. So the way we spend money, I think, can make a big impact.
Yeah, I think letting your kids even see your decision process, let's say at the grocery store. Like I'll sometimes talk the kids through, like, this is why I'm choosing this carton of milk, right? Because there's a whole bunch of options and they're all different prices. And here's the why I'm choosing this one. So like having those discussions just in your day-to-day life. One thing I would caution parents is involving your child in your financial struggles.
Yeah, right. Yes.
I think that's something I hear a lot from people who did grow up in families who didn't have a lot of money, where the child then felt responsible for the parent's financial stress or struggles. And so we do want to be mindful of that. Like I think it's okay to include children in the discussion and talk about why you're choosing which items and having these conversations while also not making them feel responsible for your family financial stress.
Good point. Okay, so now if we were to give our children an allowance, maybe that's a good place to start. How much do you think is a reasonable amount to give? How do you determine what's a reasonable amount? Because a lot of people will say there's the $1 per year rule, where you give $1 for every year old your child is, or you just give them a flat, like $5 a week or $10 a month or something like that. And when they get older, maybe you're able to give them more and they have more to purchase their own clothes eventually and all that kind of stuff. How can we determine what the right amount is?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that there's one clear path here. But I would say for me, what I would feel comfortable with is starting with a low amount and building up over the years, especially because we want to increase that financial literacy. We want to teach them the value. And for a child, like they don't really necessarily understand the difference between $5, $10, $20 when they're so young. So I would want to start with just a small amount that they could visually see. We can talk about, even if it's coins, like what is this coin, or what is this bill about? And then slowly increasing that over time as we see responsibility with it and we see the way it's going for our family. Is this something that's even working?
That doesn't give me a clear answer what we should do for our family, but
we'll
talk about that after maybe too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a number I'm pulling out right now, but I'm just saying I would want to start quite small.
I think that makes sense. We'll move on then. We'll do the final question. If parents can take one thing away from this episode, what do you think they should take away?
That Scott can change his mind.
I've changed my mind many times.
No, that's actually true. You have changed your mind a lot on many different things. That is one thing I really appreciate about you.
And this time it wasn't even based on research that I felt to be reliable.
Well, to be honest, sometimes I love those discussions the most, where we don't necessarily have like this reliable research, but we just want to have an intentional discussion about something that as parents, you just don't always have the time. Like allowances are truly just something we've never really thought about or talked about. And I think that because of that, that's probably the case for so many parents. And that's probably why some parents are just like, okay, I'll attach it to chores, or I'll just give them $5 a week, or I'll just do this, or I'll do whatever I had, because we don't always have time to sit down and have intentional discussions. And so I'd say for parents, you get to choose, right? Like it's not like there's a very clear black and white research on this. So you get to look at the gray area and then decide what works for your family. But so the takeaway I'd want is reflection, I guess, and thinking about what's going to work best for your family, and maybe letting Scott and I's conversation be a conversation starter for you and your partner or whoever would be giving an allowance with you. What about you?
I think the one thing that I want you, who's listening, to take away from this episode is that it's not really the allowance that teaches your child to be better with the resources that they're given over throughout their life. It is... and this is where I changed my mind, it can be a very useful tool. Money can be a tool to do things that you want or get things that you want or help other people. And I think the conversations you have with your children around money and resources are more important than actually giving them an allowance.
It just also made me think of one other thing. This might be interesting to get like an expert on at some point, like a financial literacy. Like even for a lot of parents, I think having those discussions is hard because they never had anyone.
Probably should have started with that. Really, because,
exactly.
Again,
like I'm just thinking about that right now.
At least our school system teaches very little about, unless you took in high school the one accounting course that we had.
I didn't take that.
Neither did I. So you have to either be very interested in it, or you have to be taught by a family member or something like that, or you just be like, okay, financial advisor, tell us what we have to do because I have no clue. Right.
And trust that they know.
Yeah, and trust that they have your best interest.
Yeah, so that, I just was thinking of that at the end. I'm like, we're asking parents to like do this coaching, but for a lot of parents, that even might be hard because they're like, I'm going to do the best I can, but I don't necessarily even have the skills to coach. So that could be a future topic or expert or something, just like even helping.
Well, maybe there's another podcast out there that we could recommend at some point. Because I feel like financial literacy is not something we could cover in one episode.
No, we'll have to do our research on that.
Okay, well, hopefully you enjoyed this. Did you enjoy this?
I actually did. I thought this was great. I was very interested in this topic as well. And I know that we have some opinions that maybe don't feel like they're talked about a lot. Like I think sometimes people come at you and I saying that we're like just kind of tough in certain areas. And I think...
I mean, we might be tougher than just some parents.
But our own upbringings kind of, and experiences, and I think values impact that. So I'm just curious how people will respond to it. But I personally loved this topic and it's fun to be recording again with you.
I would be very interested to hear if there's debate or controversy around this, because I think the way we do things is logical it's because we've been doing it for so long, I think now. Maybe at the beginning I wouldn't have. Yeah. I probably wouldn't have, so.
Yeah. All right, friends.
Okay, cool. Good talk.
And we will talk to you again very, very soon. Hey friends, thank you so much for listening to today's episode. We are glad that you are here. If you enjoyed today's episode and found it interesting, we'd really appreciate it if you'd leave a rating and a review. Scott and I actually sit down together and read them all. A 5-star rating helps us share our podcast and get these important messages out there. Thank you so much for listening, and we can't wait to talk to you again next time.